Alright, so we have arrived in the last week of this enrollment month already. So here we have the Notion. If we move on to progress and then to MMP week, the last and the fourth week, of course, what will we be going over in this week? Now, I mainly want to go over how to form a trading plan, a little bit over the filtering process as well, a little bit over the flow trading plan, every trading plan that you need to know. That is purely to, of course, use it as inspiration. So if you haven't gotten to a trading plan just yet, you can see those trading plans and you can use them as inspiration, or you can even use them yourselves if you do like that, of course, and it suits your personality. Then we also will go over how to journal, how to gather data, etc. All things we will cover. So we put everything together and how can we actually start making money. So that's why it's called, of course, as well, the money making pyramid, because this last week is an ongoing process. As in, of course, we are not looking to get a new trading plan every week, but we are constantly journaling, constantly gathering data, etc. That is very important. So the first topic right here is actually time. What do I mean with time? Submitting to time. That is the most crucial part of it. That's actually funny because we had someone in the Discord, Mukuls, if I pronounce it right, and he got funded this week again. He was already funded as well before, but he got funded again. And I told him, like, funding seems to get easy for you now. And it does. And at a certain moment in time, it does become easy, because that's the next thing as well. Growth happens gradually, then suddenly. All of a sudden, funded and becoming funded almost became easy for him. And again, I told everyone in the group as well, you need to understand that that person has been here since the beginning of the mentorship. So it was at the very first enrollment, at the launch, he was part of the mentorship. So again, he submitted to time. That is extremely crucial. And then, of course, I can only be proud. That is extremely beautiful to see. So submitting to time, that is the most crucial part. And submitting to time doesn't mean that you submit to time and you start strat hopping, etc. No, you use the same strategy. You watch the videos here. You go over, you use the, or you stick to the same mentor, etc. That is submitting to time and trusting the process. That is very important. So again, growth happens gradually, then suddenly. So at first it's very slow, and then all of a sudden you have an exponential growth. And again, that doesn't happen overnight. Well, yeah, some way it does happen overnight. But first off, you need to work your absolute ass off, and then you get that overnight success story, right? That is very important. So 1% better every day. Allow Compound to work its magic. That is very important. There's not one magic video out there that will make it click. Every successful person does the basics over and over again. Again, this is always leading me back to, if you master the basics, then you can master anything. The master of, name whatever, the person who's the best at football, at basketball, at whatever, he mastered the basics first. That is very important. So you need to master the basics, having a simple strategy that you can stick to, etc., etc. It's not one secret formula that I can give you and now all of a sudden you're funded. It's not how it works. So again, that is very important for me to emphasize on, just to have you have the right mindset as well. So then only thing holding you back is time. And that's truly, I believe that. I believe that truly. Only thing holding you back is time. If you follow along with the videos, if you maybe ask me for advice, etc., then the only thing holding you back is time. That's really, believe it, please. How long have you been on your journey? These are questions for you again. How long have you been on your journey? Are you ready to accept that you might only be halfway through? Because of course, I sometimes get people and they put time limits on things, and I did that as well. Don't get me wrong. But from my experience, time limits only are detrimental. They are only detrimental, so they will never do you any good. As in, usually I didn't make the time limit, and then I was just like, oh, it didn't work, I didn't do it, etc. Whilst if I just didn't put a time limit on it and just worked, however long it takes me, I don't care, I'm just going to work. That is when it all started working out. So not putting a time limit on it, and that is very important as well, because if you need it next month, if you need it next week, if you need it now, then it likely won't work. And again, that's just somehow the way the universe works. So that is very important as well. Order of proceeding. Then here we have the process, the gears that keep everything running. So this is constantly the order that you would use before you get into a trade ID. We first off have psychology. Now the one behind those are binary. So with binary, 0 is off, 1 is on. So psychology needs to be on. That's the first thing you check throughout the day. Is my psychology in check? Yes, perfect. I can move on to high time from endless. Is the high time from endless checked off? So is there a pair that I can trade potentially? Yes, perfect. So you move on to execution. Perfect. When you move on to execution, you can actually start that trade, right? You can actually trade that ID. Then after execution, you start back at 1. And that keeps the gears running right there. So to get to the top, psychology, the next step is high time from analyst. But you can't skip a step. Because if you skip a step, then of course you won't reach the top. Because you fall short. So that is very important as well. Then maintaining right here. So maintaining is also something we will go over in a detailed video as well. Maintaining weekly, daily reviews, keeping the core the same. Now with keeping the core the same, I obviously mean that you don't change all of a sudden the concept, you don't change order flow in itself, etc. Over time, maybe after a year, 6 months, yeah, you can potentially look to maybe implement your own studies. But right now, I would always advise just simply copy me and don't change the core of it. That is very important. Before you see any profitability, so before you get a funded account, don't change anything. After you get a funded account, and potentially, again, it's a thin line. It's a very blurred line, as in you can't really see if you are changing something because you now lost a trade or if you're changing something for the better, etc. That is very important to understand as well, because you don't want to change anything because you're losing a trade or you potentially lost a funded account. No, you don't want to change anything right there. You don't want to change the core. That is very important. Only change something when through your own study you are seeing a new pattern. And again, that is talking about we have 80% mechanical, 20% intuition in our trading plan. We want to change something in our intuition. So none of our rules are changing, but we see the market better, which comes through experience, through studying, but not through new concepts and changing something. That is very important as well. That is crucial to understand. Then building. How can we actually build? Because of course we want to maintain, but we also want to get better. Well, what did we talk about just now? We talked about we have 80% mechanical trading plan and we have around 20% intuition. You always want to focus on building that intuition. So how do we do that? We stick to the same thing over and over and over and over. And when we do that, we have seen so many scenarios in our head. It's like you're a great football player or a great basketball player. And you do the same thing. So you're a great playmaker. So you distribute the ball, etc. And you've seen so many scenarios play out, etc. Like this. You don't change your skills. No, your intuition changes. As in, you know when someone starts to move. You know by the look of someone what they are doing, how they are defending you, etc., etc. I think we can all find an example like that, right? So that is the same in trading, where you don't change the concepts that you're using. You don't change the trading plan. Your intuition changes. That is something you train, your intuition. That gets better over time. But again, that's the whole philosophy behind our group, behind our mentorship, etc. is your intuition will not grow and it will not get stronger if you constantly start strategy hopping and you constantly switch concepts, etc. Because you don't give it time. You're not submitting to time. That is extremely important as well to understand. Just having those basic guidelines, sticking to the same thing, giving it time. It's very easy actually. And I tweeted like a long time ago when I first was on Twitter actually. I tweeted out something like, it's very simple but not easy. Because it's simple as in, if you stick to the same thing over and over and over, you will start to see that it will work. But it's not easy because a lot of people can't handle that psychology. They can't handle their human nature of needing that next best thing. And that's the same within business in general, not even trading or even in sports, where if you see someone shooting like Michael Jordan, or you see Michael Jordan shooting, of course, then you're like, he shoots the ball in the basket. So I must copy his shooting form. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. You need to develop your own shooting form, and then you will be the best version of yourself. That is very important, right? So again, that is me emphasizing and reinforcing the idea of the very basics that we talked about already, but it's good to keep on reminding ourselves of that thing constantly. So when we do fall potentially in a bad cycle, we can keep on reminding ourselves. That is very important. So you build through discoveries. So again, that is that intuition part, that 20%, that is the potential. That's what I meant with that is the potential. That 20% is where the potential lies for your training plan and for yourself. Then we have consistency. So consistent with your training plan, constantly doing the same thing over and over. The boring things, doing the same thing over and over. Data. So through data, you can potentially collect information, as in, if you notice that you're not that profitable in New York session, perfect. Then we only trade London session. And the data might support the idea, all right, if I trade London and New York, I might be fatigued by the time I get to New York. So I want to only focus on London. Perfect. Then we do that. And that is based on data, etc. So then we have remove rules instead of adding rules. What do I mean by that? When you get to a trading plan, it is usually the case where when people start trading and they start implementing a new strategy, they might go for a funded account. And usually what you see is that losing curve that we talk about a lot. And the losing curve is also something we will talk about in itself, is basic summary of the losing curve. You first start losing, then break even trader, and then you start winning. Now that losing curve, if you encounter that losing curve, what a lot of people do is they start adding rules. They start adding rules into their strategy. And I'm speaking from experience here, because I had 1,000 rules after just 10 trades. And I was like, if I have these 1,000 rules, then I will never take a loss again. Well, my mind was all over the place. And of course, that, like you guessed it, that won't work, right? That won't work. So instead, we want to focus on removing rules, actually. So making it simpler for ourselves, not focusing on 1,000 concepts, etc. That will pay off, because then slowly but surely, your intuition starts to take over. And that is when, maybe in 5 years' time, I'm talking long term, is when you will have 5 trading plans, but they are all ingrained into your head. And you don't need to read them daily. And that is when intuition is fully taking over. That is the beauty of trading, that eventually that happens. And again, first we need to have guidelines. That is important. One strategy that we can stick to, simple guidelines. Perfect. That's it. And then we let our intuition slowly take over. But that needs time. It needs time. That needs time. That is very important. So again, what will we touch on in MMP week? We will be going over trading plans, the trading plans that you need to know as well. Use them as inspiration, how you can get very creative with your own trading plan. If you haven't done that yet, I will give full guidelines on how to create it, etc. So there's no confusion anymore. And if there is, of course, then please do let me know so we can work on it as well. And then as well, journaling, etc. Everything you need. Perfect. Then we can start with the last week. And then after this month, what will happen is we will apply it in a live market more and more and more. And that is what we are, of course, working towards. Perfect. Thank you.